This video is about present participles in Latin. Uh, the content corresponds to Oxford Latin, chapter 26, but it is generally applicable to any present participle. What is a participle? Participle is an adjective formed from a verb. A verbal adjective is usually what people say. Examples are the running boy. Running modifies boy, or you could say the boy running in the park. A present participle is the ing form of the participle without any additional helping verb. So running by itself is a participle. If you say is running, was running, are running, that is not a participle, it's a verb, and this is a mistake that people commonly make. Be sure not to confuse them. The boy is running down here. That's a verb, not a participle. Running can also be used as a noun. This is more advanced grammar. Running the race was fun. That's a noun, and that's not what we're talking about. So don't translate it that way either. What participles do is they allow a writer to join two simple sentences into more complex sentences. They are very close to being subordinate clauses. Latin uses participles a lot. Forming Latin participles. To form a participle, we find the present stem of a verb. We add the linking vowel, which is the same vowel you'd use, which is the same one you'd use for the imperfect tense. And then you add the suffix ns, ntis for the nominative and genitive forms. So we start with kuro. Kur is the present stem here. E is the linking vowel down here, so the present participle is going to equal kurens, or kurens, and then the genitive would be kurentis. Remember that your linking vowels depend on what conjugation the verb is. So in the first conjugation, it's going to be A. Second will be E. Third is also E. In the third IO and fourth, you're going to get IEs. IE there, IE there. You need to deal with irregular verbs because they do have participles. Wolo, nolo, and malo, and pharaoh act like their third conjugation, so that means they get an E into them. Wolens, nolens, malens, and ferens. The verb eo ire forms its participle differently. It is kind of weird. Iens, ientis. So this would be true also for its compounds. So to go around would be circum iens, circum euntis. There's no present participle of the verb to be. If you'd say in English we have one, it's being, and they just sort of leave it out or use in a positive. Declining Latin participles. Because a participle is an adjective, it has to agree with the noun it modifies in gender, number, and case. The noun it modifies is this thing that's doing the action. So when we were talking before about the running boy, or the boy running in the park, the boy is doing the action of the running. Present participles are always third declension. They decline like the adjective that you've had, ingens, ingentis. The NS form is going to be nominative for masculine, feminine, and neuter. The Oxford textbook does not have the declension of the whole thing written out, but so I have it written out here for you. This is the declension of currens. We won't go over it in detail, just some things to note. In the ablative of all genders, ablative singular of all genders, sometimes you see an E ending, and sometimes it acts like an I stem and has an I ending. And you just have to roll with that. Notice that it acts like an I stem in the neuter plural, currentia. It's got an IA there, and then currentium, IUM. If you're translating the Latin, this won't be too much of a big deal. Participial phrases. Participles can be found as a single adjective. I saw the man walking. I saw the walking man. Note in these that the adjective can either be before or after the noun. And walking in both of these examples, incidentally, would be accusative because man is the direct object of each one of these. Most of the time, however, participles will be in phrases with other words. Other words can include adverbs. I saw the man walking awkwardly. Notice that in English, when you have a participial phrase, it usually comes after the word that the participle modifies. You could say, I saw the awkwardly walking man, but that would be a little bit weird. You can additionally have prepositional phrases. I saw the man walking with a limp in the park. You would not say, I saw the walking with a limp in the park man. Direct and indirect objects can also be in phrases. So, seeing the man with a limp, I went to help. The seeing modifies the I here. Giving the man help, I talked with him a while. So I here, the giving modifies the I again. So seeing the man here, direct object of seeing. Giving the man help, the man is the indirect object here. Identifying phrases. One of the critical things you need to do is identify the beginning and the end of a participial phrase. Sometimes they help you out by setting phrases off by commas, but sometimes not. It is critical that every time you encounter a participle, you find the beginning and the end of the phrase. Because you cannot mix words in the phrase with the words that are in the main sentence. That really screws things up. So one way to help you do that, group the words in the text by putting parentheses around the participial phrase. Participial phrases in the Oxford text at least appear in two different ways. The typical Latin way, the way we'll see, from now until the end of our Latin careers, you would have them in the middle of the sentence. So, coniurati Caesarem in terra iacentem reliquirunt is an example in the book. Iacentem modifies Caesarem. In this typical Latin way, all the words between the participle, and the noun it modifies go with the participle in the participial phrase. So putting parentheses on it, in it would look like this. Coniurati Caesarem in terra iacentem goes as a package together, and then reliquerant is your main verb. So it would still be a sentence. So you would have a main sentence, coniurati Caesarem reliquerunt, and then the in terra iacentem is the modifier of Caesar. So the conspirators left Caesar lying on the ground. The easy Oxford Latin way is what I'm putting it here. We'll put the entire phrase after the main verb to make it a bit easier for you. You don't usually see this in real Latin. The direct example in the book is this sentence, coniurati Caesarem reliquerunt. Remember, that's the main sentence we discovered up here. And then they take in terra iacentem and stick it after the main verb. So what you have to pick up on is iacentem, em modifies Caesar, m here, and so that whole package goes with Caesar. The translation is exactly the same. Translating participles as clauses. A Latin participle may be translated into English as a subordinate clause, and sometimes it's an advantage to do this. You would use one of the clause words or subordinating conjunctions listed here, and you choose the one that fits best. So when, since, who or which, and with present participles, while. Sometimes although can be used, but not so much in beginning Latin. So here's our example again in this sentence. So it may be translated as follows: the conspirators left Caesar. Instead of simply lying on the ground, we could say when he was lying on the ground, while he was lying on the ground, since he was lying on the ground, or the conspirators left Caesar who was lying on the ground. There could be a couple of different legitimate translations. You're going to pick the one that fits the meaning of the context best. Sometimes it really makes more sense to use a clause than a plain participle, because the plain participle is kind of awkward in English. And it often happens when the noun and participle are dative. So this is an example that's in our Oxford book. Mihi haec roganti pater nihil respondit. So the literal translation is, Father responded nothing to me, asking these things. So if we were to put parentheses here, we'd put them right there. That's not so bad, this particular example, but there will be ones that are worse. But the clause would be, Father responded nothing to me when I asked these things, or you could say who was asking these things. That's it generally. I think I've got to say that one of the great benefits of Latin is understanding participles, and it's the practice that you get when you see the relationship between phrases and clauses. And this substitution, making the choice between when, while, since, and who, and substituting those for a plain participle, that practice you get gives you the ability to vary your sentences in your own writing, and makes your writing more sophisticated and more interesting. Thanks.